Okay, Brian, so here's what you need to do. Unplug the blue wire and then plug the red wire where that one used to be.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a red wire. When are you guys gonna have to come help me with this?
Okay, I'll come in there, but you're gonna have to put your pants back on.
Yeah, that's gonna be a deal breaker for me.
Welcome in to the Bro Force Squad podcast, where we're just a bunch of bros drinking beer and watching TV and movies. This is our review of The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 4, titled The Siege. I am your host, the Mayor Jeff Hornacek. Joining me are the mad scientist Brian Banner and the American hero Nate Thurman to review this episode as we do all of our TV episodes on the 4 Bro Force Squad criteria: the acting, the story, our favorite scene, and then what I think will be maybe the best version of this all season, our theories and questions going forward. So let's get it started with the American hero Nate Thurman for acting and cast. Some old faces returned to The Mandalorian this past week.
Yeah, it was awesome seeing Carl Weathers come back, and then obviously Cara Dune. That's kind of weird saying one of the people's real name. Carl Weathers' character,
It's Carl Weathers. Let's be honest with ourselves.
He can only play Carl Weathers.
Yeah, but yeah, it was cool. We kind of expected this. I think we talked about it previously. They're going to make their way back into it. So I don't think, kind of jumping forward, I don't think it's trending to Timothy Oliphant's character coming back, which is kind of disappointing. It could happen, but I don't think it's trending that way. But it was definitely cool seeing them back. And one of the things that has continued to develop, which is kind of cool. I mean, some people might think it's corny and cheesy, but seeing Mando develop more as a dad character, which is really great. Seeing him like really care for him, and kind of being like protective when they leave him in the school with the other kids. He's like, no, I've got to be with him at all times. And then obviously near the end, wiping up his spit up as he's doing after he does the corkscrew. But that was one of the main things that stuck out. I'd really like to see, seeing that development, with Mando being more of a dad type, which we've already seen it, but it's being like more cemented into the plot now.
I like it because, sorry, Banner, real quick. It feels so against who his character is as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and it's like it's a cool character arc because you see it developing and him going against some of his Mando creeds.
And I will say, being the only father on the show, that is so relatable. You were this person, and then as soon as you have a child, your entire demeanor and almost your personality and who you are changes to cater your life towards this child. And you can see Mando wanted to do that, but was kind of hesitant up until this point. And now he's just like, you know what? This is who I am. This is what life is. And he just kind of embraces it this episode, which is really cool to see. And it's very relatable. I never thought I would be relating to a space cowboy character, but it was really fun and really cool that they were able to do that in such a unique way.
Yeah, I don't want to say it came full circle this episode with Mando and Baby Yoda, because I think a lot of the story is yet to be told, but definitely relating back to like the turning point, as Nate was kind of alluding to, in his character was when he gave the child back to basically the Imperial officers, and then realized they kind of had nefarious plans for it and went back to rescue Baby Yoda, seeing the experiments, which we'll get to it at the end of the review, but
yeah. And I hope people are liking this dynamic, because if you think back through any of the other Star Wars series or movies or anything, you don't see this like father-son relationship. Like all the other parent offspring relationships are so different in the whole Star Wars series and everything. And it's funny that this is like the most touching relationship and they're not even related.
Right. Well,
I mean, I think the closest to this kind of relationship you have is probably Qui-Gon and Anakin, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Which
that's
is
true. We only get that for like 30 minutes of a movie.
yeah, which is crazy to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you my 30-second review of the acting performances. So first off, Horatio Sands plays Mythrol, the blue guy. Horatio Sands, like from SNL.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
recognized his voice first. And once I realized it was Horatio Sands, I think I liked the character a lot more.
Yeah.
Going back, if I were to rewatch episode 1 of the whole series, I think I would really like that a lot more. Carl Weathers as Grief Cargo, like Banner and I said, I mean, he's Carl Weathers. He's fine. I actually liked him a lot more in this, I think, than I did last season. And then Gina Carano as Cara Dune. She's just not a good actor, guys. I mean,
it's rough. I think it's actually gotten worse this episode than the last time we saw her, which is weird.
agreed.
I echo almost everything you say. My notes literally say lots of action in this one, and I hate to say it because he fucking sucks, but I actually thought Carl Weathers did a decent job. Gina Carano kind of sucked in this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all we need to know. I mean, it was a real action-packed episode, so the little acting that they... Whew,
Wow, that may be that's a rare sneeze on the pod.
Man, yeah. That
I
came
don't
out of
remember too
nowhere.
many.
History.
The little acting that they actually had to do, Carl Weathers actually acted circles around her, which I never thought I would say in my life.
And it doesn't really bother me because it's not like they're giving her too much of a heavy lifting part in this episode, so it's whatever. She's not the worst actor on this show. She's definitely not the best actor. I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
All right, on to story and plot. So just a quick recap. Mando's ship can't make it to Corvus, so they have to go back to Navarro for repairs, since obviously he has some friendlies there. And then the plot takes us into the very interesting storyline of Grief and Cara Dune, which is sort of a recurring plot device of this show, but I don't mind it, where someone needs Mando's help to execute a mission before he can leave the planet. In this case, they're ridding Navarro of its last Imperial base, sort of the Imperial forces that have stayed behind. And I actually have a question before I toss it over to you, Banner, for story and plot. How much time are we to believe has elapsed between the end of last season and this episode? Because the way they were talking about, like, oh, you've really cleaned up this place, it seemed like it would have almost been like a year, but that doesn't make any sense, right? If it'd been that long.
I would just, off the top of my head, just trying to think back, yeah, a couple months maybe is kind of what I suspected. I don't know.
Okay, because they were talking like Navarro's changed completely, and I was like,
yeah,
how long has it been to even?
She's a fast worker.
Yeah.
So I'll play devil's advocate here because I agree it's probably only been a few months, but I could convince myself it's been longer based on the fact that when he left the ice planet, his ship was fucked up, right? So they couldn't fly very fast. They couldn't use the hyperdrive. So they flew from the ice planet to the frog lady's planet just through space, not using hyperspace. So it probably took a lot longer to get there than what they're actually showing on screen. And the same thing from the fish planet to back to Navarro. I feel like that you could convince me that those each took a month in themselves, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
Just in travel time.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, what are we going to do? Show Baby Yoda and Mando playing checkers?
No, I'm not complaining about like them not like it's like the people that watch Harry Potter and they're like, how come you never show Harry taking a piss? It's like because
that's fucking weird.
Completely not. That's weird and it's non-essential to the plot. Like,
yeah,
I don't need to know that. I just was a little bit confused. Like these drastic changes have happened on Navarro, and maybe it's just because the story does pick up almost immediately at the beginning of the season after last season with his mission from the guild. But I was just wondering how long has Cara Dune and Cargo had to like completely reform Navarro? Although I guess if Moff Gideon and the Imperial forces pretty much left, that would help expedite that whole process of cleaning it up.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
So obviously the story here, we can get to a lot of the big time plot developments at the end, but the story, the show has left itself a lot of different avenues to go down, and they all intrigue me equally. But I think kind of the main thing here is we do sort of see a little bit of what Moff Gideon's plan and now involvement in the show is, because last season we just knew he wanted Baby Yoda. We didn't know for what, and we didn't even really know if he was working for the remnants of the Empire or sort of self-serving, which I guess we still don't really know that.
Yeah, we're kind of left in the dark. We're kind of piecing it together ourselves to see if like he's actually like way high up, or if he has his own faction that he's kind of just running independently.
He's he's franchised a bunch of Dunkin' Donuts, but he's not the CEO of Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah,
He's like the
well
regional general manager.
Yeah, if you ask him at the Christmas party, he says, "I'm doing okay. Don't worry about me.
I'm comfortable."
Yeah, that car in the parking lot's almost paid off. Almost. Banner, do you have any thoughts on where the story went here? I know a lot of the really interesting stuff is just probably saved for theories and questions.
Yeah, I just as far as the episode goes as a whole, and me and Nate talked a little bit about this off pod, but this is almost a perfect episode in my opinion. You have lots of action. There's a little bit of humor. Obviously, Baby Yoda's adorableness. They really hinged on that 2 or 3 times. With him doing the wires, then him wanting the cookie and using the Force to get the cookie from his classmate.
One of the subtle things is when he raises his arms when they're flying around,
yeah,
like he's on a roller coaster.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like they just like they know who Baby Yoda is, and they know who we want Baby Yoda to be, and they're like, okay, that's fine. I mean, other than Baby Yoda being Baby Yoda, he really doesn't have a whole lot to do in the series, right? At this point in time.
I mean, he's just the driving force behind everything.
Yeah, he's just an asset that he's trying to deliver.
But yeah, he doesn't like. I mean, there's been a few places where he has contributed, but
right, and we learned this episode that the experiments that Moff Gideon's crew did on him, that has a big domino effect coming up in the show.
Right. Yeah. Coming up, he's going to be. I mean, obviously he's the center of the show, but it's almost like in Stranger Things, the kid that gets possessed really isn't in the show a whole lot, but he is the main focal point of the show. Baby Yoda's kind of that same thing.
It's actually a really good comparison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Going back to the episode, though, it advanced the overall story, but still having a very good, meaning individual episode. We advanced the story with, we learned about what they were doing to Yoda. We learned where Moff Gideon is right now and kind of give us some ideas of where he's going, which we'll get into in a little bit. But also their whole point of the episode was, hey, we want to wipe out this base so that all of Navarro can be free and we can become a big trading planet. And they accomplished that at the end of the episode. So it was very self-contained, but also applied itself to the bigger overall story more.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I had actually started thinking about this after the episode once I saw that Carl Weathers had directed it. Because I think one of the things about this show that's taken a little while for me to adjust to is sometimes it does feel like a monster of the week with like tiny little breadcrumbs linking the overarching narrative together. But I do think part of that is because they have, and this is a strength of the show, so I don't ever want this to change, but they have so many different directors in a season. Like 4 or 5. I think last season might have even had 6. Right?
I think they had 6 different directors for 8 episodes. I think Favreau did 2 and Filoni did 2.
That sounds right. Yeah, so you want to bring these, and these are great creative minds that they're getting. Like these aren't people that do like, no offense if this is you at home, but these aren't people that come in and do like a guest spot on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Like these are big time directors and big time directors. So when they come in, they do kind of want to have a little bit of autonomy to do their own story with like, it's almost like an MCU movie, right? Like make your movie, but we need these few things as far as plot threads to connect. And this episode felt like the perfect balance of that. Like it could basically exist on its own, but there's some really important stuff that we get, especially like the last 10 minutes, that really help get you excited and sort of push this season forward.
That's a really good point to compare it to the MCU. And you have to assume Favreau's experience with the MCU. I mean, he did Iron Man and Iron Man 2. That literally started the MCU right there. So his experience of that and being in that whole process of that cinematic accomplishment has to come into play here with being the showrunner of this, right?
Yeah, I would.
And I think it's cool. It's a good note or a good thing to note is if you watch the Galleria, which was kind of the making of the first season of Mandalorian, all those directors were on set for multiple episodes. They may not have directed it, but they were there. So it's more this collaborative thing as opposed to, no, this is my episode, which I think is really cool and really important to note when you're talking about that cohesive storyline.
It's a good point. Nate, anything you want to add before we move on to best scene?
Yeah, just touch on a few things. It's obviously important when it is. We talked about Moff Gideon being seen in this, but it's an important character reveal because audience already knew, but now the characters know, and so that's obviously going to drive this a little bit more. So that was cool, a cool revelation for the characters and in the show. So now
quick point on that. I didn't even, and this is my own fault, but I didn't even make the connection that like Mando and Cargo and Dune might have thought Moff Gideon was dead.
Yeah.
I didn't either.
I totally forgot that him like cutting himself out of the TIE fighter was kind of like a oh shit moment.
Yeah, that was like, oh shit, he still is alive. Yeah, because he saw it go down, and for all intents and purposes, he thought he was dead.
I think literally I was like laying on my couch, and when he goes, Moff Gideon's alive, I was like stuffing my face, and I go, duh.
Idiot. But yeah, that adds a whole new dynamic for them because that wasn't even in the back of his mind. Now he's like, fuck, I got to get off this planet because Gideon's probably going to be after me. And then one of the things, I thought this was a little cheap, but the more I think about it, it kind of makes sense. But at the very end, they reveal that one alien that was fixing the ship put a tracking device on. I was like, oh, that's kind of convenient. But I kind of go back and think that, okay, they're probably thinking that Mando is going to go back to Navarro at some point because he has allies there and all that. So I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense that they may have planted someone there, said, hey, if you see this guy show up, here's this tracking device to put on him. So when I first watched it, like I said, I thought it was a little cheap, and I was like, oh, that's kind of stupid. But it kind of makes sense they had someone planted on there. So that was kind of a cool use of using that planet and his allies to kind of go against him and to his detriment now because he has a tracking device on him that Gideon is going to go after him with.
Also, that guy looks like he would do anything you wanted just for like a pack of death sticks.
Oh, for sure. Like 2 credits.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, really? Yeah, I don't know if you know what? That's fine. Okay. That's like worthless.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's all you want, right? Yeah, I think I'm good.
And then the last thing that was kind of cool near the end, whenever the X-Wing fighter from a few episodes ago came back and was questioning, they revealed that, I don't know if this was known before, but Cara Dune is from Alderaan. So they have that nice little tie-in there. And so I was trying to do the math, and I guess Alderaan got blown up about 10 years previous is about the timeline. So whatever that means to her age and where she was at that time. But it was about 10 years ago, according to the timeline that I pieced together.
Yeah, I have a not that bold theory about that coming up. One other thing I just thought of before we move on to best scene, and maybe I was just not paying close enough attention, but at the end of the episode, how did Mando go from that Imperial base to being in the Razor Crest?
What do you mean?
He used his jetpack and he flew back because remember when they split up, Cara Dune says, use your jetpack, you'll get back faster. And they split up.
Okay. That just seemed like an incredible amount of distance to cover on his jetpack.
Maybe
100% agree.
Yeah.
It might be the only like plot flaw in the whole show. But I'm willing to look past it.
This is the whole Game of Thrones. The dragon got to Jon Snow and the amount of time that he got to him in. So, but yeah, he splits up and says, "Hey, I got to go save the child or get the child," because he knows Gideon is going to be after him. So yeah, the jetpack thing is a little cheap because he's never really used it for that great of a distance. But yeah, well, it worked.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I do like that they're using the jetpack more though. And how they're using it. I mean, he's used it in every episode at least once, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it so. Like an Iron Man type feel to it. All right, best scene. I mean, a lot of good options here, right? We could go Baby Yoda. We could go any of the 2 big action set pieces. And even Baby Yoda had a couple.
Episode?
I'll get mine out of the way first. I mean, Baby Yoda in that school, I could just watch a whole show based on that. Like him getting into various cliques, him going to gym class. But him stealing that kid's like yogurt-covered Oreos.
Yeah, like the blue macaroons or whatever it was.
Those looked good. I would definitely.
Well, I mean,
fancy
it makes
cookies.
sense if you use blue milk instead of regular milk. It's gonna come out a different color.
Right, of course.
That is true.
And then, I mean, you guys will probably echo these, but the action set pieces in this were just absolutely incredible. I mean, the whole canyon chase on the speeder and then the TIE fighters. it gives you like vibes of kind of the Luke's trench run and the X-wing, you know. Also gave me kind of vibes of the pod race scene in Phantom Menace, and it
I
clearly
really felt pod racing.
and the sound design there is where it's like nothing on TV equals that.
So yeah, one of the things. Oh, sorry, I'm going to jump in and take
No, I'm
it.
done.
So, but what you said, the sounds and everything is amazing. Once those TIE fighters start coming up off the top of that, and you hear the sound, it's like such a distinct sound.
Did you
And
have your sound bar on for it?
Oh yeah, you get your Star Wars boner going, and it's awesome. But like jumping off of that, there are so many things in Star Wars. I mean, the fucking lightsaber, of course, a blaster going off, the TIE fighter, just like it's such a distinct sound. It's amazing how they've kind of created those iconic sounds. And like you could just start playing like audio clips, and you could just, that's this.
Mm-hmm.
So once you saw those start going, it was amazing. But go ahead.
I think the only sound that has a recognizable sound like the Star Wars sounds, the TIE fighters, lightsabers, is a raptor in Jurassic Park. Other than that, I don't know that there's another more unique or another movie or show that has unique sounds like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of sounds too, there was a Wilhelm scream in this episode in one of the
when the stormtrooper falls. Yeah,
and Star Wars has kind of been R2, like every time R2 blows up, it's a Wilhelm scream. So Star Wars is kind of notorious for clever placement of that.
I thought the same thing when he was falling down the shaft. I was like, there it is.
I always noticed
but yeah, so that scene carrying through that is probably my favorite. That speeder that they jump in is amazing. Like from the start of that, when they jump off the platform and go down, smash the speeder and go. But that thing is like the Cadillac of speeders. It looks like it's like a fucking boat. It's like a freight train. Like once it gets going, you're not stopping that thing unless it runs into a wall.
If you back into that thing in like the Walmart parking lot, it's fine. Your car's fucked up.
Oh yeah, it's totaled.
Yeah, it's like a 1970s Chevelle. Like it's indestructible.
Basically.
Yeah, it's got the steel bumpers. It's not got none of that plastic bullshit on it now that they put on cars. But yeah, that whole scene, like Banner was saying, like it reminds you of the pod race scene. But then also with like the Luke X-wing going through the Death Star because you've got the tunnel. But I thought it was done really well. There were a lot of cool parts of it where Carl Weathers' character is trying to like blow the rocks off instead of hitting it to like blow debris on them. I thought I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a cool strategy.
And then whenever Cara Dune just fucking bullies that guy into the side of the wall and explodes his speeder, that was pretty badass too.
And I think it was also kind of unsuspected because the whole like shootout in the corridors of that base. I was thinking like, okay, this will be like the big action set piece of this episode. Mm-hmm. Like normally, budget.
Wrong.
Yeah. Wrong. You're like, holy shit! No, that was just like the appetizer. Here comes the entree.
Yeah. That was.
And I actually had my best scene as that corridor fight out scene. As soon as Mando realizes, oh, this is a lab and this is where they were experimenting on the child, and he splits off and uses his jetpack to go back. I thought it was really cool that this is the Mandalorian show. It is about that. But really, that whole corridor fight scene, I mean, there was a little bit of Mando in there, but it was a lot of Cara Dune and Carl Weathers escaping with, what's-his-face, Blue Fish Man, whatever the fuck his name was.
Mythrol?
Yeah.
Mythrol.
That was a great, like you said, Jeff, it was a great setup scene for a better chase scene, which was really hard to do, to have back-to-back action scenes like that.
Yeah.
Really hard to do. And I am so conflicted internally because Carl Weathers fucking sucks. But he directed this perfectly.
He directed
some of the shots they had, they kind of like were looking up as they were running through the corridors and stuff. That's not stuff that I normally notice, and I noticed it being really well. And the score was on fucking point this episode.
Yeah, the strings in that corridor shootout were like kind of a unique sound we haven't got in The Mandalorian so far.
And there's I'll jump in real quick because Banner said something that kind of triggered something in my mind, but him saying like the way the camera angles were and the shots and that stuff. And there was like subtle things like whenever they're at the doors and trying to get in, Mando takes off his jetpack. The way they shot that, and like it just looks so cool, him going up and just like landing up there.
That was cool.
And then
from their perspective, like what it would look like. Yeah.
It was really well done. And then I kind of group this as a separate scene, although it was like a continuation of the speeder scene with the TIE fighters. Whenever Mando comes in and has this little dogfight, I talked with Banner about this.
Yeah.
That like dogfight style, like
That
Air
was
Force
cool.
scene was badass. And a couple moves that he pulled off, like right in a row, he stalls out and like drifts and then goes straight at the other one and is doing the corkscrew.
And the TIE
That
fighter's
was
like, "You're a psycho. What are you doing?"
yeah, but he knew exactly what he was doing. And like the way that was shot was so badass. And then for whatever reason, whenever they're looking through the binoculars and like seeing them like fight in that little graphic and that little piece looked so badass for some reason. I don't know why. It looked awesome.
I think it's weird because like the targeting computer stuff in Star Wars, the technology, because they've had to sort of like keep it in the times when it was made in the 70s.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's way behind like the actual ship. Like the targeting technology feels like an Atari.
It
The
looks
ship
like a
you're in-
cartoon. Yeah.
Right. The ship you're in feels like an Xbox Series S,
Yeah.
but it just works in tandem. I don't know why.
Yeah, absolutely.
One last thing I just thought of, and this is just kind of like a meta aspect of Star Wars that I thought was I really appreciated. So that scene where Mythrol has to walk out on the ledge and basically like set the lava to implode, like in the Imperial base. Just like first off, shades of kind of Obi-Wan turning off the tractor beam in the Death
The
Star.
exact same thoughts.
But second off, I do love kind of the meta references where he's like, "There's not even a handrail out here." Like a lot of the Empire Design Family Guys made fun of this.
Yeah.
The Blue Harvest jokes, but it's like, why isn't there a handrail out here? Some guy's job it has to be to come out here and fix this.
In Force Awakens, yeah, whenever Kylo is walking across that long catwalk, it's a long ass catwalk with no handrails. It's got to be like 100 yards long.
The Family Guy joke is like, there's two Death Star employees talking, and the one guy goes, I asked if we could have a handrail. Do you know what they said? They're worried we'd be leaning on it too much. It's like, oh, is that what they said?
That's great.
All right, on to my favorite part of the episode, our theories and questions. So I think we're going to get some big ones out here. I know Ben already said he's swinging for the fences, which I like. I have kind of a minor one, and this might just be like, no horns. That's way too fucking obvious. But I'm just wondering, after Nate brought this up, why did they mention it? So Cara Dune being from Alderaan, is the universe too big for me to just assume that she might be an Organa?
I think
it's
I
a
think it
legitimate
is.
question.
The only
obviously-
reason
There's more than one family on Alderaan. I get that. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, like the significance of bringing it up.
I would love that, first off. But again, we all know Devil's Advocate's my favorite game. In, I believe, Revenge of the Sith, when Senator Organa takes Leia,
Yes.
he makes a comment of, me and my wife have always wanted a daughter, but we weren't able to have one. That's not to say once they took Leia, they had a daughter.
Or didn't
But-
adopt someone else.
And yeah, I mean, that's not to say that she can't be. I
be a
think
cousin.
yeah, it could be a cousin. I'd buy that.
I don't know if it's necessary at all. Actually, I don't think it is necessary, but it just kind of made me think. Like, I mean, it's cool that they mentioned Alderaan. I think I would almost prefer she has no relation to the Organas, but it just got me thinking. Like, obviously it was not thrown in there. Nothing's unintentional in this universe.
No, there's with him leaving that badge behind, and there is something developing there. But yeah, I don't think that's necessary to make this fit. But it would be cool. But I'd be fine going either way.
I have a couple others, but you guys might mention them. Nate, I'll let you go first. Theories and questions.
Yeah, I really don't have any more theories coming off of this. Just questions in general that probably everyone who watched this has. So obviously with the base and the people or whatever the creatures were that were like in the liquid that they were looking at, I'm guessing the main purpose was to take them, and then they were going into those kind of suits of armor that Moff Gideon was working with or staring at in the final scene, creating a new type of clone army with midichlorians in their blood. So I'm thinking that's kind of where that's going. Just curious what your guys' thoughts were on that and kind of where you see that going as well.
So before we got the shot of the armor, I started to think, okay, they are using or trying to use Baby Yoda's midichlorians to create Snoke. That was my first thought because
See, my thought was they were
Wow, that's
using
actually
Baby
good.
Yoda's
I like that.
blood and the midichlorians to make like a Star Wars version of a super soldier serum.
yeah,
Yeah, to go.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
like new
we're all right
clones,
there in the
basically.
same boat.
Yeah.
Could they be creating the Knights of Ren? I mean, that armor did look very akin to what the Knights of Ren wear in The Last Jedi,
I would love that.
or Rise of Skywalker, excuse me.
I would love
Mhm.
that.
Man, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about. Yeah, the Knights of Ren in there.
But one thing,
Yeah. go ahead.
I still don't know, and I mean, I'm hoping we get this answered at some point. Is maybe one of you guys have any theory here? What is the relationship between the Empire and essentially the First Order? Is it like the same group of bad dudes that just kind of reformed it, or like would the resources right now that the Empire has be totally separate from what the First Order ends up having?
I
Uh,
think that
go ahead.
I think they're like a remnants or like a faction of the Empire that still believes in what the Empire believed in, and they're trying to rebuild a new empire as far as, and that's what becomes the First Order. Like Moff Gideon may get with some other Moffs, and that's how.
That sounds funny. I
That
get it,
does
but
sound funny.
Go off diving.
Yeah.
solid.
But that's how the First Order was started.
Yeah, kind of segueing off of that was one of my other things, and Banner, you might have a little more knowledge on this if it's out there in the Star Wars universe. But like, do we know Moff Gideon's role like after the Mandalorian, or like where he's been, what he's doing? Is he dead? Is he alive? You're shaking your head no. So
I don't know that I've ever heard of him
okay.
until The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Then we can just speculate wildly.
Nice.
All right.
Banner, what'd you have?
So, couple things. 2 questions and a theory. 2 questions. We're not gonna be able to answer these. Where the fuck is that scientist
Challenge
dude?
accepted.
Where's
the
the
scientist
scientist?
dude?
I bet he's like on the Imperial cruiser with Moff Gideon. Well, hold on. No,
He
because
just
he did
sent
like
the
the
message to
transmission.
him 3 days
I
before,
know.
though.
So do we think he was at that?
He wasn't at
base?
the base because they just showed him. So he's out there somewhere. He's got to be, right? And maybe he's a prisoner of Moff's. I don't know.
It did kind of feel like they had abandoned that base.
He may just be at that original base where they had Baby Yoda in season 1. Still,
Or maybe he was at lunch.
Cheesecake
Probably.
Factory.
It was 2 for 1 at Chili's.
Oh, okay. Never mind. He's not.
Their
Cheesecake
happy hour is insane, man. Yeah, that's a good question. Also, maybe I wasn't really paying attention. Was he actually one of the guys where when Mando kind of like blew up the whole?
Yes.
Okay, so he was seen there, and did he
So,
die seen? Because if this message was sent 3 days ago.
What? Sorry. What'd you say?
Like when Mando got Baby Yoda, were we under the assumption that that guy was shot and killed? And so it's like, oh shit, he's still alive when he sent that message?
I'm trying to think back, and I can't remember because he was definitely there when Mando was like going scorched earth on the place. I can't remember if he actually killed him. But it's funny because Miss Thurman actually pointed this out to me because she was like talking about the guy in the hologram. I was like, that guy. I was like, who are you talking about? And we went back to the recap at the very beginning of the episode, and they had a recap from last season. And yeah, sure enough, that was the guy. I didn't even put that together.
Because if that guy was like the dude who was hunched over Baby Yoda, clearly with him when Mando was tearing that place apart, there's no way he didn't get shot between the eyes. Mando was like so pissed.
But he's got to be alive somehow.
Right.
Next question. I'm assuming it's gonna be next episode. When the fuck am I gonna get Ahsoka Tano?
It's got to be.
I think it was Thurman last week. Banner, you weren't able to join us, but I predicted Ahsoka this episode, and I think Thurman predicted her the next episode.
I think
just
right.
kind of the pattern that they've been going on. Like, there's going to be a. I don't want to call this episode a filler because it was great, but yeah, just a something piecing together that next part of the journey. But I kind of saw that coming because I knew there was going to be like a mission, but this mission was actually very pointed, so it fit in really well.
All right, guys, my big theory here.
Here we go.
So we all know that the Mandalorians that we met last episode are going after the Darksaber, right?
Yes.
Correct.
We know that Moff Gideon has the Darksaber, right?
Also correct.
We know that Mando doesn't necessarily agree with the Mandalorians that we saw on the fish planet, and he obviously knows Moff Gideon's a bad dude. I think at some point, maybe not this season, but at some point in this show, we are going to have 3 teams fighting over the Darksaber. We're going to have Cara Dune, Carl Weathers, Mando, Baby Yoda, Timothy Oliphant, and Ahsoka ultimately fighting the Mandalorians over who has control of the Darksaber, because the Mandalorians want the Darksaber to try and take over the galaxy and rule the galaxy, same as Moff Gideon.
This is very similar to my theory last week. I don't know if you listened to the show when you're not on.
I did, but I was super hammered.
So I predicted that Mando would end up with the Darksaber, and it would basically start a civil war between the guild that he had worked with on, maybe it was Navarro, and Bo-Katan's faction of the Mandalorians. But I kind of like your idea even better if we pit, just fuck it. It's a Royal Rumble. Throw a third faction in there fighting for it as well.
Yeah.
This can be the MacGuffin that they're all, competing.
Like you almost have Mando's group and Bo-Katana's group working together to get the Darksaber, but they're both kind of trying to position themselves to double cross the other.
Yeah, and I know Horns last week when he mentioned that, I think he had said it. Mando is probably going to use it as like leverage at some point for something. Now, Banner, in your theory, is that kind of like why he wants it, or is he wanting it because now he's grouped in with Ahsoka Tano and she wants it so bad, so he's just kind of going along to help her out for her cause?
I think over the course of the show, Mando is having a morality change. Mm-hmm. In the first season, he was a bounty hunter. He had 5 guys in his fucking ship in the first episode, all frozen in carbonite. And now all of a sudden he's being this more caring about Baby Yoda, and then him destroying the base in this episode is showing, hey, these people of Navarro deserve to be free. And he's kind of becoming more of like a Robin Hood-esque person, as opposed to I'm just here to catch people and get money. He's more of I'm starting to do the right thing and have this different kind of morality where he values life and sees good and bad more.
Banner, that actually gives me...
Hold on, did you answer my question?
Probably not.
Like, why is he fighting for the Darksaber?
Because I don't know, he doesn't want bad people to have it. Those Moff Gideon and the Mandalorians both want it to take over, to rule in some capacity.
No, that makes sense.
And he sees that and goes, no, they don't need to rule. Why does somebody need to rule? This is just a weapon. Let's remove that from the equation. That was
another theory, actually. It wasn't what I had proposed, but that makes sense too.
Banner, you're speaking about Mando's morality change has me thinking now. So next episode, let's assume, just for argument's sake, next episode Ahsoka Tano is introduced, and Mando shows her Baby Yoda, who she will, of course, recognize as a descendant of Master Yoda. And he says that he has a very, very tight relationship with Baby Yoda, a father-son or a surrogate father. If Ahsoka tells him her thoughts on the Jedi Order, do you really think Mando is still going to fulfill his mission and just take Baby Yoda to these dudes who Ahsoka claims are the biggest hypocrites in the history of the galaxy?
No, I think he's going to stay with... I think he's actually going to keep Baby Yoda with Ahsoka, but his creed or his quest will never have been completed because he isn't putting Baby Yoda with the Jedi. He's keeping her with Ahsoka, who is not a Jedi. So he's going to have to stay with them based on his creed and his quest. So now we're going to have a little trio with those three for, the end of time.
It's like a Yondu Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 situation when he explains why...
Damn, we are fucking great with the analogies.
This one I'm pretty proud of. Why he didn't take Quill to his dad. And then, the rest of the... what's Yondu's group called?
The Ravagers.
The Ravagers. The Ravagers disown him because you never take a kid, but they actually end up finding out... Well, I won't spoil the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 if you haven't seen it, but he had a different motivation than what the perception was. Do you guys have anything else? I just have one other note.
I think I've covered everything for me.
All right, last thing that I wanted to just bring up. I read this in an article. All of the promotional footage, all of the trailers, everything we've seen, only had footage from the show through episode 4. Meaning everything we're about to see, all the other characters, nothing has been shown to us. Yeah. And number 1, I don't think that's unintentional. And number 2, fuck yeah.
I think it's because Ahsoka... Sorry, I'm going to go first.
I dubbed myself. Talk.
That's fine.
I think that's
earlier.
because they refused to show Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. I think that's because she was a fan cast. They gave us what they wanted. They wanted to keep that a secret. And I think we're going to have Ahsoka Tano in every episode from here on out.
Wow.
Yeah, you basically said what I was going to say. So
Yeah, I know. That's why I went first.
I know.
Hang on, let me just take what you were going to say real quick. So that's cool because obviously, like I think the most familiar thing to this was the Avengers Endgame final trailer where they showed basically nothing and like 4 seconds of footage that takes place after the first 15 minutes of the movie in a 3-hour movie. So this is cool. I mean, we basically have 4 episodes where we don't even know the locale. Like we haven't even seen, are we on a desert planet, an ice planet? What does Corvus look like?
I think they may have mentioned it, or maybe it was on my research online, but I think Corvus is supposed to be like a forest planet.
That
if I
sounds
remember
right.
correctly.
I've looked
Yeah.
at some Zillow listings there, and it looks foresty
Yeah.
for some houses I was looking at buying.
So
Yeah, property taxes are a little high in my opinion.
So one last second long shot theory now that I just put Forest Planet in my head. Return of the Ewoks?
They've been scared to give him to us, but this feels
I don't
like
think
the show
so,
where
but I
they-
just want to throw it out there just in case.
I just want one guy
Maybe an Ewok-like teddy bear,
I'm cool with that. That'd be neat.
like a normal human size. Like you have Ewoks that are midgets, and you have Chewies or the fuck are they called? Wookiees that are like giants. They've got something in the middle.
Okay. All right.
Interesting.
Little Planet of the Apes vibes.
But they're like no, they're not as sentient as like humans, right? They're still like Ewoks where they
Yeah, they still go. "Argh!"
try and like eat
Whatever.
your popcorn or whatever lay ahead.
Yeah. I'm good with that. Okay, that was the last thing I had now.
Perfect. All right, this one had me pumped, guys. Not that I'm ever not pumped for this show, but like this is a good halfway point to really up the momentum, and we're on an upward trajectory for sure. All right, for the mad scientist Brian Banner and the American hero Nate Thurmond, I'm the mayor Jeff Hornacek, and we are the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thanks for checking us out. We'll be here for the rest of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Check out all of our reviews. You can follow us on Twitter at Bro Force Squad. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Just type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words. Check out all of our content on our website, broforcesquad.com. Till next time, we need to go buy some of those blue Oreo things.
Yeah, I'm going to try and cook some of those up.
That kid was so shocked. He's like, I'm not even mad. I don't know what else you can do, so just take the cookies.
Yeah, that kid, I don't know, he was like the looks he was giving were like really weird. I didn't know like what he was looking at. I was like, he's looking at Baby Yoda, right?
Also,
He's like looking above his head.
and I don't know how kids age in the Star Wars universe, but that